Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Soul of Business with Blaine Bartlett. My name is Blaine Bartlett, and I am your host. Folks, we got an interesting show today. And I say interesting not just because I'm interested in it, but it's a little variation on the theme of the soul of business. One of my guests today, and we got two guests that we're going to be speaking with here, is Marissa Levin. And I had Marissa on last year, talking about the work that she does, her firm at that point in time, Success Culture International, and just a phenomenal conversation. It was one of the highest rated shows that we did. And I was just thrilled with that. Well, she reached out to me a little bit earlier this about a month and a half ago, I think it was, and said, got great news. Stuff has happened. And she had ended up selling her company to another firm, SOAR Community Network, that is absolutely phenomenal in the work that they're doing. And the combining of these two organizations is what I want to actually unbundle today. The founder and CEO of SOAR Community Network is Phonpadith. And I want to welcome you as well. Now, both of you, you guys have known each other, for a fair amount of time. 20 years, I believe, is kind of the number that I heard here. But I want to just kind of preface some of the stuff that we're going to be looking at here. The conversation that I entertain, and this show is about conversation, is around what I call the soul of business. And Carl Jung, spoke about soul as being that, and Aristotle did as well. And so we've got a kind of a bookend here. Everything has a soul. A rock has a soul. A tree has a soul. I have a soul. You have a soul. And I don't mean this in a religious sense. I mean this in the context of that spark that makes possible what I show myself to be in the world. So if I'm a rock, there's a spark that shows me the way to be a good rock out there in the world. And I don't mean this in a flippant sort of a way. This is kind of a universal truth. It's an intelligent universe. It moves. There's creativity. It is continuously in process of evolutionarily manifesting greater and more. Greater and more. That's what the soul wants. It wants to be greater. It wants to be more. It wants to come through in all of the ways that it possibly can. Now, that's my soapbox conversation here. What I want to do is, in this conversation today, how do we use the soul to grow? How do we intelligently, intentionally use the soul of our business to grow? Not just to keep connected to it because somebody said it was a good idea to keep it visible and alive, but how do we actually leverage it? And that's the story that I want to have Marissa and Mali actually speak into. So, guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. What a great question, and very thought-provoking, and love your definition of the soul. And I agree. We have to constantly give thought to how our soul will continuously evolve. And I think that that's a great place to start with how the integration, the union, the marriage of Successful Culture International and SOAR Community Network happened. I had a partner with Successful Culture International. I started the company on my own about 14 years ago, and brought in a partner, another woman named Jennifer Brown, who I knew for 20 years as well. I guess there's a trend here in terms of like going deep with relationships. And we expanded my company into an entity known as Successful Culture International. So just in that transition, Blaine, I guess you could say that the soul of my business expanded when I brought Jen in, and my own soul was expanding, right? And that was my second and third company. My first company was a company called Information Experts, and I grew that for 17 years before evolving out of that company and launching Successful Culture, Then I evolved into Successful Culture International. And then in the middle of that, I actually built another company with another woman, but that we're not talking about that today anyway. And so Successful Culture International formed, and through my partnership, we were able to take that to another level. And then as my soul continued to evolve, it became clear to me that my work in the world through my company now, Marissa International, was going to be greater than the work that we were doing through Successful Culture International, which is why I had the vision of getting it into the hands and the heart of the right person who then could continue to expand the soul of the company.
That's perfect. Yeah, no, Malay, when, I'm just curious here, because I'm just naively ask some questions here. When Marissa approached you, what was your, first of all, your initial reaction? Because you basically were, and SOAR Community Network is, or at least at the time, was pretty much geographically bound, in North America. Is that correct?
Yes, that's about right. Yes.
So, so the
How did it
possibility
evolve?
of being, how did it evolve? And the idea of international, and there's a reason I'm asking that question that I'll come back to in just a minute here. But go ahead. How did this land with you?
Yeah, I would go back to the soul part of it all. I always had a vision as a young person that I was going to be an entrepreneur. And I always knew that whatever work I did was going to be international, because I'm just an international being. I was not born in the US. I was born in Laos, and my family fled the country during the Vietnam era. And so we were refugees of war. And being from the Eastern philosophy, how we grew up, I always saw myself as a global citizen. And so even in my heart, in my spirit, I knew that whatever business I decided one day to launch, it would be an international business. And so I already had that in my heart. When Marissa approached me, in fact, because of the pandemic, we hadn't seen anybody. And SOAR actually started to grow and expand during and throughout the pandemic, because now we had folks who were interested in working with us, and there were no geographical boundaries anymore with the pandemic. All of our programs were designed even before the pandemic to be delivered remotely. We just had that vision to be able to travel the world and do great work and not be bound by physically having to show up. So the great benefit for us was that we were already positioned for this. And we actually went to a joint event together where we serve on our board of an organization together, and they were hosting a gathering. And this was 2 years in with the pandemic, so people were safe to gather now. And so we ended up on a yacht together for this networking event. And this is, I can't speak for Marissa, but this is where the seed fully was planted for Marissa. When she saw me there, she was like, oh, okay, I'm being reminded of where I need to go. So I'll throw that back on your lap, Marissa, to expand on that. But Blaine, what happened was whatever spark was planted that day, a couple months later, I get this voice message. I think it was a text and then a voice message. I don't remember, not to go back. And pretty much I can't specifically recall every single word, but I know this. The context was Marissa had a dream. And in the dream, there was something having to do with a baby. And then in the dream, I realized when I woke up that the baby, my baby, belongs to you. And that's when she said, I think you should purchase Successful Culture International. This is yours. This is yours if you want it. And so when I heard that voice message, I'm like, is she insane? Like, we're just in a pandemic. How in the world is this going to happen? We can't front load the capital. We're kind of in hold it. Let's keep everything steady and safe. We can't spend any money. Like all that stuff was going through my mind, Blaine. And at the same time, there was something deep within me that told me, but stay open. Stay open. Like the fear part of me went to, you can't do that. That's insane. The limiting belief part of me said, you can't do that. That's insane. But then there was something deeper in that soul level that said, stay open, keep open.
I love that. The idea of, and this is where people get wrapped around the axle. Excuse my phraseology on this, but they have this idea, they have this dream, this spark that the moment it happens, there's this light that goes on, and you can feel it in your body. I've had this happen, I don't know how many times, but there's this epiphany, this light, this thing, this idea that just vibrates. And then the brain kicks in and goes, yeah, but, and we get, my good, very good friend, Mary Morrissey, talks about, the thinking of, the way that the world is structured, old world thinking, the ways that our paradigms will limit us. Mike Dooley, another good friend of mine, talks about the curse of the how. And I was talking with a client the other day, and he had this brilliant idea, and he presented it to his board, and this, it just kind of sprung it on him. And the chairman of the board started applauding, and a couple of people, they sat bolt upright. But then the naysayers came out, and they go, well, what if, what can't, how about, but, all the yeah buts started coming out. And there's this little damper that got put on things. Now the dream is still alive, and they're going to end up doing some very interesting things with it. But I'm interested in how the two of you actually kept the dream alive. And I want to talk here in a little bit about the merging of cultures. But before we get to that, how did you keep the dream alive? Because capital is always going to be an issue. Yeah. And how we're going to front load this, this purchase. And how did you keep the dream alive as you navigated the necessary hows?
I think from the very beginning, we came to this from a place of love and trust and shared purpose and alignment of values. Any relationship at all, if it's built on the foundation of love and trust, it can expand. If it's built on a foundation of fear and mistrust, it will not expand, right? Mm-hmm. Trust breeds trust, mistrust breeds mistrust. And so for us, throughout this entire process, we stayed in a place of love and trust. And again, that alignment of shared purpose, shared values. This was my baby. I launched it 13 years ago. It meant so much to me to get it in the hands and in the heart of someone that I felt understood why we were doing what we were doing, and they were going to care for it and nurture it and honor the spirit of what we built. And truthfully, there just was no one else that I envisioned being able to trust the way I trusted Mali. There was Mali and there was everybody else. And that's just how I looked at it. So look, we manifest what we vibrate, right? Vibration precedes manifestation. Mm-hmm. We manifest what we intend. And from the very beginning, that was just where we both were. And we happened to work with two very good attorneys who both were very committed to making sure that we were both legally protected, but also really honored our relationship, right? And they gave us the room to be in relationship with one another. Is that a good way to put it, Molly? Like, they
Absolutely.
really honored our relationship. And we absolutely had to have the legal pieces in place, the, letter of intent and the asset purchase agreement, and we had to do due diligence, and we had to go through the legal process. But the transaction didn't become about the legal process. The transaction remained in the spirit of the union we were creating.
I love that.
Yeah.
Ali?
I'd love to add to that, Blaine. I want to give credit to our two partners as well, Jennifer and Victor. Victor is my life partner. He's also the COO of SOAR Community Network. He joined a few years into me launching the business, now over 11 years ago, soon to be 12 years. Can't believe it. I want to give them credit because it's important that, yes, Marissa and I have the relationship, but we were in partnership with others who owned the business as well. And without their trust, without them operating from a place of love, without them operating from a place of desire to do great work, to gift the world with the work that we are going to provide through this arrangement, through this quote unquote transaction, that was essential to have everybody on board, vibing the same way, having the same vision for what success looked like, and also to operate from our place of core values. At SOAR, we have 3 non-negotiable core values. And the first one is do everything with love. So Victor and I sat down and we said, could we do this with love? Are we in a place to create an acquisition that is filled with love and excitement? The second core value at SOAR is it must be a win-win-win. You know, will SOAR win in this acquisition? Will SEI win in this acquisition? And will the clients that we ultimately serve with the acquisition, with the assets that we're purchasing, will they win? That was important for us. And the third core value for us is be impactful. Will this impact and shift and shape and transform the lives of the leaders and the individual contributors in the workplace as we shape their culture? The answer to all 3 had to be yes, for myself and Victor as the leaders of SOAR to move forward. The answer was absolutely yes. So that was how we used our own core values as the compass to make sure that we were in integrity of the vision at SOAR, but also to honor, really important, to honor where Marissa and Jen were headed. And I remember one of the first conversations with the 4 of us together about this, I specifically asked on the agenda, why do you want to sell this company? Where are you in your life? What's your motivating why? Why is this important to you now? And what is a win for you?
That's a great question. Yeah, how do we define success? I want to, now, for those of you that are listening, and I apologize for this. I didn't really provide an opportunity to describe what the company does. Yeah, what is it? The whole focus is on developing compassionate leaders that create a culture where everybody can thrive. I mean, that's kind of my take on both of your organizations, and now collectively the one that you have with SOAR Network. Developing compassionate leaders at every level throughout the organization. It's title agnostic, but compassion leads the charge, and developing a culture that allows for everybody to thrive. So I'm going to come back to this. We're going to take a real quick break right now. And I want to drop in when we come back to exploring the use of values as something other than artwork on the wall. Okay, so been listening to Marissa Levin, I'm sorry, and Mali Phonpadith, and we will come back in just a moment. I want to thank you for listening. I want to also invite you right now to go to blainebartlett.com. And on that site, which is my personal website, you'll see services up on the top menu. I'd like you to click on Leadership Mastermind. Now, why I want you to do that is we have structured a mastermind program that is very unusual and it is very powerful. And by going onto that site and clicking that link, you'll be taken to a landing page that is an invitation to join this mastermind. It's a 52-week long exploration of what it takes to be a highly effective leader in today's fast-changing environment. You won't regret it. And if you've been liking what you've been listening to on these Soul of Business podcasts, How does one become a leader that can keep connection to the soul of business? That's what we look at. That's what we're about in this mastermind program. So again, go to blainebartlett.com and click on the services link. And there you'll find the link to the Leadership Mastermind program. Look forward to seeing you there. Thanks for listening to this little commercial. And now back to our show. Welcome back. Before we took a break, Mali had been talking about the use of the 3 core values that they use in their organization to guide decision making and actually to inform the choices that they're making. And this was a very specific piece that, and this is my language for it, moved what in many cases when we're looking at a merger or an acquisition process, and I've been party to a whole bunch of these, move it from transaction to something else. And I was struck by the commentary that both of you have actually referenced around the nature of relationship and the quality of the relationship. And it's my bias that any organization is a collection of people that are in relationship. That's all any organization ever is. And then the interpersonal is the most obvious, but there's relationship with values, relationship with goals and vision, relationship with work process, relationship with fill in the blank. And if these relationships are working well, you got a pretty good shot at being successful. And where we get off the rails, in my experience again here, is when the focus becomes not on the quality of the relationship, but on the transactional process. Mm-hmm. On the focus becomes, let's get the transaction executed. So, Mali, do it with love, win, and being impactful. I understand from your perspective how this worked. So you've got 2 cultures coming together, and my guess is that they weren't dissimilar in significant ways. So there was a lot of already overlap here. What cultural challenges did you experience as you started moving these organizations together that actually allowed you to say, we can tweak this a little bit, we can tune this? How does, we need to integrate this in a little bit more, with a little bit more deliberation? What kind of came up for you in that process?
Marissa, I'll start. We had, in my humble opinion, and also in my spirit, we didn't have any. It was very spiritual for me, because I'm like, how could this possibly be so easy? Mm-hmm. Like everything I've ever heard and been involved with our clients going through mergers and acquisitions, there's this huge thing, this heaviness around culture and making sure people are on board. And we had none of that, Blaine. That's why I almost pinched myself every time we spoke, like, is something wrong, or is this because it's absolutely right? And so that was my experience with it. And it wasn't just between Marissa and myself, because we had the longer relationship. I checked in with Victor all the time. And in fact, the only thing that we were laughing about, the 4 of us, was the transactional piece. The legal piece was slowing us down. Like, it was just, we have to go back and forth. The legal stuff has to be in place. But spiritually, emotionally, it was completely flow. All those months we worked together, everything just started to fall into place. We didn't have any issues with scheduling conversations. We drove where we needed to make things happen. It was quite magical. And I'm not, that's an understatement, I think. It was far beyond that.
Oh, that's fascinating. I love that. Marissa, anything to add there?
I think you captured it perfectly. It was so easy because, again, it was trust. And from a cultural perspective, we really were in alignment from values, shared purpose. Everything hummed perfectly. And there was so much transparency right from the beginning. Mm-hmm. We were so excited. Jen and I knew that our clients would be in such great hands with Mali and Victor and the entire SOAR team. And we also knew that our people would be in great hands. That was the other thing. Like from the very beginning, when this was going on with our people, we made sure that they knew that they were going to be taken care of. And the way that we put so much care into transitioning the relationships, it was so intentional, Blaine, that our people felt safe. It all comes down to the emotional safety that people feel in an organization. Our clients felt safe, our people felt safe. And now that, the transaction, I mean, now, as of this recording, it's hard to believe, but it's been over 2 months. It's 2.5 months, right? And they now, Mali and SOAR, have beautiful relationships with all the people that were working within our organization. Like we made sure that everything with a warm handoff was done, and you love our people and they love you. And it's just, it just was all so natural because there was so much communication, so much transparency, so much honorable intention for everybody to win. It was all done in the spirit of love. And that's why it turned out the way it did. And Molly, I can remember being in the conference room, and you were so good at this. We were looking at the asset purchase agreement, and there was a section in there, and it was very convoluted. It just, the way it was written was just, it was overly complicated. And the way that we broke it down as a team and made it simpler, we just were always in lockstep the way we moved through the transaction. Complete transparency and communication, Blaine.
That's beautiful. I'm going to come back to the value, do it with love. And I'm going to mark that one out for a very specific reason. From a business perspective, people hear the word love and they kind of go, yeah, whatever. Raj Sisodia, a good friend of mine, key architect in the conscious capitalism movement, wrote the book Conscious Capitalism with John Mackey. Prior to writing that book, Raj wrote a book called Firms of Endearment. And I love the title. I mean, if there was a book title I could steal, that would be the one I would steal, Firms of Endearment. But the idea of doing things with love, and this is where, when you don't have to be a jerk to be successful. Okay, you don't have to be an idiot to be successful. You don't have to be focused on the big pile of money to be successful. So how does love come into your definition of success? And Mali, I'm going to toss that one into your lap here. With SOAR International, or the SOAR network. I keep saying SOAR International because that's kind of where you're moving. The SOAR Community Network. Your whole focus is on compassion as a mechanism, and I say mechanism not mechanically here, but as a catalyst for creating the kind of culture, and I'm going to take this directly from your website here. Organizational leaders are concerned about retaining and attracting great people while many employees are struggling to stay engaged. Your experience shows that human leadership and cultural development has to be predicated on the presence of caring, compassion. So programmatically, how do you actually use love as the catalyst for the work that you do throughout the different programs that you've got?
It's a powerful, complex question. And at the same time, from my perspective, it's quite simple. Basic human needs. Humans are the ones that show up to go to work. Basic human needs tells us that shelter, food, all the physical needs need to be met for someone to feel they're in abundance and overflow, where they can operate at that higher level of self. But there's also emotional basic needs. Mm-hmm. To be seen, to be heard, to be valued, to feel cared for. So when we shape culture, we can't do that successfully and sustainably if we're not shaping humans. And because human beings are born into their circumstances, the soul is pure, yes, but when we enter this physical plane, we automatically have complex situations, the zip code we're born into, the country that we're born into, the philosophies that we're indoctrinated from the moment that we have consciousness. All those things start to unlevel the playing field, if you will. And so when you have all these complex creatures, beings coming into the workplace, they're showing up with all of those things that have shaped them up to that point. And for us to be able to bring in that holistic approach to human development is essential, because it creates a baseline. And the most simple yet most complex place to start is compassion, caring, love. We know what that feels like intuitively, so we must start there. And if we can create that, if we can develop compassionate, empathetic leaders at every level of the organization, focus on the human development aspect, then we can design cohesion, which then fosters collaboration. You cannot get to cohesion and collaboration without that foundational development of the human beings being able to really see each other as whole humans, doing the best we can with what we have.
I love that. What you're talking about is essentially a blueprint for creating a compassionately capitalistic organization. That's my take on it. Okay. And I'm biased because I wrote the book Compassionate Capitalism, but but people are continuously asking me, first of all, isn't that an oxymoron? Compassion and capitalism? It doesn't have to be. It absolutely can be merged together in an incredibly powerful way. And the answer to how do I do that, I think, folks, if you're listening here, well, not if you're listening, if you're hearing my voice, you are listening, but you need to go to SOARcommunitynetwork.com, SOARcommunitynetwork, one word, .com. What they have is a programmatic approach to developing your organization and your leadership from a perspective that can literally transform the way not only your business is operating, but transform the way business is operating on this planet. Business has to be a force for good. From my perspective, the purpose of business is to uplift the experience of being alive on this planet. And that's what SOAR Community Network is doing, is uplifting the possibility of how life can be experienced on this planet. So, guys, any last words? We're going to be bringing this to a close, and unfortunately, I know we've got a kind of a hard stop with you, Mali. So I want to be sure that we're honoring that. Any last words? Where can we find out more information? Anything that you want to make sure people pay attention to?
I just want to honor Molly. What you just shared was so beautiful, and it is the exact reason why I knew that SOAR was meant to acquire us. That's the heart of an acquisition. And this is what it means to move through a transaction, quote unquote, from the place of your soul. And that's what we accomplished.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Ali?
I just want to acknowledge Successful Culture International's team and Marissa and Jennifer, because the reason why they asked us to take such great care of Successful Culture International, their assets, is because they are also on a very personal journey of where they want to be in their lives, to live their best life, give back. With all the years that they've developed and shaped this, it was not good enough to sell the business to just the highest bidder. It was not good enough just to dissolve the company, because of all the magic and all of the heart and energy that was poured into all of their programs. So they do have a home for it. And because here at SOAR, this is our purpose. We just get to live our purpose through this business. It's really going to be something special for all of the leaders who have an opportunity to really understand their own purpose in life. And that when they make these decisions around people and culture, it impacts the whole of their people, their families, the communities that their employees touch, as well as our impact as a whole on society. If we're all developing more compassionate leaders, we are going to create and innovate to change this world. And it's such a need right now. There won't be humanity left if we don't step it up and do this very complex work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's complex. It is certainly that. And my experience suggests that if I allow my soul to sing, we have the possibility literally to soar, no pun intended here. But that the only way that we can soar as a species is to let our soul speak and not our ego.
Yep.
So, folks, you've been listening to, I hope, a very provocative conversation. Marissa, Mali, I want to thank you very much. I love what you've created. I love what you're up to. Folks, as you're listening, go to my site, blainebartlett.com. You'll find all kinds of stuff there. I'm going to leave you with this one. Find yourself a way to continuously be a center of distribution, not a center of accumulation. Nature distributes, it doesn't accumulate. And that's what we're looking for as a business owner, business leader, business employee, business consumer. It's not about accumulation. Yeah, give it away. Yeah, always look for ways to be a center of distribution. And until the next episode, thanks for listening. Take care.